Well, he's known for his signature overalls and his passion for fresh local produce. I'm joined by urban farmer Nathan Ballentine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We say you are the man in overalls. You're, in fact, wearing some overalls today. I think you generally do. Where did the whole man in overalls concept come from?
Originally from my grandfather, he wore overalls every day of his life, and he was actually buried in overalls.
Oh,
But then, as I was trying to figure out how do you do marketing to talk about urban farming and helping people start gardens, I actually came up with the idea of a sign that said "We'll garden for food," and I stood beside the road. And before I did that, I thought, well, how could I make that image better? And there, sitting in the back of my head, was overalls.
so there was a lot to talk about the work that you do and some events that are coming up. But I want to sort of start our conversation talking about this standoff you've had just recently with the city over a plot of land, one of a few properties that you own and farm in the urban core. Can you tell us what happened?
Sure, and I wouldn't call it a standoff so much as a gray zone, and as a figuring out. We're developing a third farm in Springfield. The first one was in my backyard, and the second one was in the side yard of a local business. And the third one, we acquired property because we had an extensive wait list. We have a wait list now with over 400 people.
For your
Um,
subscription
For our subscription, yeah, it's a
produce?
subscription you pick. So people pay a monthly fee like Netflix, and then they get access to our space. And with that, they get access to have their own events, but also to pick veggies and herbs and fruit. And that wait list has vastly outgrown our rate of farm development. But of course, we're proceeding with that, and so we acquired this property on 7th Street, right behind the Saints Row on 8th Street. And, the difference is that we don't have a primary residence or a business on that lot. So for decades, actually, urban farming has existed in the city of Jacksonville, but it's been in this gray zone where it's existed as a, ancillary use, right, as a accessory use. And so the city has said things like, "Well, we can't say you can do what you wanna do, but we can't tell you you can't do it." Right? So it's just this gray zone. And, so what I think that is happening right now is because we're trying to start a farm on a piece of property and have it be explicitly a neighborhood farm destination, whether we call that a private club or a essential service, or what have you. We're trying to figure out what that looks like for the city so that others who come after us um, can follow that template. Because even the chief health officer in the mayor's office is touting the positive health outcomes that come with urban farming in terms of reduced obesity, improved diabetes scores, and things like this, not to mention improved loneliness and what have you. But there's not really a route for urban farmers who say, hey, I'm going to acquire property and I want to start doing this so that I can better feed my community. That template doesn't exist yet in our city. It does in Atlanta, it does in many other cities, but we don't have that framework yet.
I am here with Nathan Ballentine, so called man in overalls, catching us up on the issue of urban farming and kind of where that falls right now into a gray area with the city of Jacksonville. This is stemming from a Facebook post that you made after you got a citation from the city code compliance division. Can you tell us why you were cited, what it said and what the concern was?
Sure. So that the citation said I had 30 days or something to get a certificate of use. I originally applied for a certificate of use as a private club last spring, and was denied on the grounds that the piece of property is not quite large enough to fit the definition of a private club. It turns out that a lot has to be 1 acre to have a private club, and our farm is 2/3 of an acre. So then I was poised to reapply, but in talking with the Office of Agriculture, Angela Tinbrook, she said, "Look, you are a farm. You have the right to farm in the state of Florida. State law supersedes the city law, and so you can proceed." And so I did. Also, there were some murmurings in the neighborhood. By and large, we've had tremendous support every day that I'm on that property. Neighbors stop by and say, "It looks good. So excited. Can't wait," and things like this. But there were a few folks to the contrary in the neighborhood, and they didn't want what they called, quote, the bad precedent of us being able to have a certificate of use as a private club, because they said, quote, if you could have a farm as a private club, quote, you could do anything with a private club in the neighborhood. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's true or not. But certainly our business model has been a club model since the very beginning. And then we've actually layered on another business model to that effect with gardeners from across the city. So anyhow, it was kind of in limbo, but I did all the requirements in order to engage the Right to Farm Act. And then I heard in mid-February that a memo had been written by the Office of General Counsel to Jimmy Peluso that said, in effect, they didn't believe that the Right to Farm Act had any application in this context. Um, there's precedent around the state to the contrary, but that was their opinion. And so, as the general counsel for the city, then that held sway. And I don't know exactly what catalyzed that memo, and I don't know exactly what catalyzed then code enforcement to show up at my door. But they delivered that memo and said, like, you have to comply and get a certificate of use, and I'm fine with that. I just want some direction from the city on what I should be applying for, in terms of category. There's probably 6 different categories within the zoning that would qualify, but I want that direction because I don't wanna do paperwork for no point. So I'm actually meeting with, Ashante Green is convening some folks at the city, and we're gonna have a sit down next week.
Yeah, we'd asked the city if they had any comment on your circumstance and the citation you received, and they sent us a statement that says we've reached out to Mr. Ballentine to set up a meeting with him and various city departments to determine the best path forward and provide support through this process. Mayor Deegan's administration is committed to urban agriculture. We're actively working on building urban farming into daily life in ways the community can support. It's our goal to identify solutions that work for all parties in this specific neighborhood and across the city. By taking this approach, we'll be able to build policies that can be tailored for neighborhoods while encouraging citywide growth in urban agriculture. Um, I want to ask you though. We have an email from somebody that says it's my understanding that the farm property is in a historic district,
Mhm.
which has special rules with its own zoning overlay and design regulations. I'm pro urban farms, shouldn't but they shouldn't be exempt from the zoning or historic district rules. Is that also part of the issue?
Well, I'm fine with that too. I live there. I love the quality of the neighborhood, and what we found in digging into history is that actually 1 block away from us, in 1903, there was a sandboard map of this extensive florist operation, and they had a greenhouse complex that was almost the size of the entire block. And so anyhow, we're of course leaning into that precedent and saying urban ag has been part of this neighborhood for over 100 years. Um, but I see no reason that what we do shouldn't shouldn't follow through with some of the historic commission things. Right now, the rules are things that are 30 inches and below are not part of their review system. But when we do permanent structures above that, we of course would go through that process.
So, just briefly, I do want to get to some of the community events that you do. You do this monthly Greens and Beans event, which is kind of a potluck and also a tutorial in some ways. Tell us a little bit about that and when the next one is.
Sure. Yeah, our next Greens and Beans is actually tonight. It's at 6 p.m. and it's a monthly it's a monthly chance to break bread together with other folks in the community. We have a chef prepared farm fresh meal. We always have an entertainment piece, and then also the chefs do some culinary education. So it's a chance to gather, and if folks have a an idea for improving the community food system, or they just enjoy breaking bread with folks in the community, then it's a good chance to come out.
And is this at the farm in question, this event?
Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny
Okay.
that.
I do think that the location, though, is East 7th Street if people are interested in attending.
Yep.
It's tonight. What time does it start?
Yeah, 6 p.m., 125 East 7th Street.
All right. Nathan Ballentine, the overall man, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.